everybody. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. My name is Robin Truman. I'm the business editor for PAX Tech Magazine, and today I have with me a panel of industry experts to speak on the topic of connectivity in the aircraft cabin. This is our 6th episode of PAX Panel, and it's entitled PAX Panel, The Next Chapter in Connectivity, and it's kindly sponsored by Panasonic Avionics Corporation, so thank you very much. Without further ado, I would like to invite the panelists to introduce themselves. John, let's start with you.
Sure. I'm John Wade. I'm the head of the in-flight connectivity business for Panasonic, and I've been in this industry quite a length of time. In fact, I realized that I'm celebrating my 25th anniversary of being involved in IFC.
Good morning. I'm Philippe Schleret, VP Aviation with Telesat. Thank you for having me on the panel. And I've been with Telesat for 14 years, working with the IFC provider in the market, and now focused on our upcoming Telesat Lightspeed constellation.
Hi there. My name is Benny. I'm the chief executive here at Neuron. Been in satellite communications, moving things industry for about a decade now.
Hello, everyone. Reza Rasulian with Hughes Network Systems. I'm responsible for the aviation business at Hughes, both commercial and business aviation. I've also been in the industry for quite a long time, since '97. Also have experience at Carnival Corporation, delivering to cruise ship passengers as well. So we're bringing all that know-how and innovation to the aircraft.
And hello, everyone. My name is Kurt Weidemeyer. I'm head of product management for Thales, which includes both in-flight entertainment and in-flight connectivity. Been here around 2 years, and before that, spent a lot of time on the connectivity side. So thank you.
Amazing. We're so happy to have you all here with us today. And let's start off by talking about LEO versus GEO versus multi-orbit. So how can airlines assess the benefits of each satellite option in terms of optimal performance? John, would you like to start?
I think that question was start with me, but I'm having a bit of trouble hearing internet link or somebody else's. I think we're in this fascinating juncture where there's more changes happening in space than have over the last 25 years. And it's really the arrival of LEO, which is changing that in a fundamentally massive way. And I've been fortunate enough to use legacy GEO as well as modern LEO, and I can tell you the difference is night and day. It is the closest thing to giving passengers an experience in the air that they have on the ground. That's been the holy grail for us forever, and it's finally arriving. So from an airline perspective, we really tend to think that the future is going to be based in LEO. In fact, we talk about leading with LEO as one of the mantras in terms of how we provide services. And we want airlines to really look closely at how LEO can differentiate from traditional legacy services, because we really think that's the way of the future.
Fantastic. Philip, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think we tend to talk about the LEOs in a pretty generic way, but it's important to understand that not all LEOs are created equal, right? There is one aspect all the LEO constellation have in common, that's the low latency, and that's the number one why, as John was saying, IFC services are moving toward LEO constellation. It directly affects the passenger experience. Beyond that, each constellation is different. And Telesat Lightspeed is really the only one that has been designed from the ground up, not just for, not for residential customer, but solely for enterprise-grade services and aviation in particular. So, in terms of performance, let me give you maybe a short example how that affects it. We can work with existing antennas like the Thinkom 2517 and others. And with that type of antenna, we can bring up to a gigabit to the aircraft with a CIR, meaning guaranteed rates over 300 megabits. That type of level of guarantees puts our channel in a very strong position to stand behind their SLAs. And this is really, what airlines are judging the services on. Obviously, also with those speeds, it is a future-proof solution that will help the service provider support all the ever-increasing demand for data from the passengers.
Fantastic. Reza, would you like to add anything?
Sure. Yeah. So I tend to agree about the performance aspects of LEO satellites, but we'd also be remiss if we didn't talk about the relative challenges depending on the network from a bandwidth density perspective. So we need to make sure that you have enough capacity, especially at busy airport hubs, as an example, to ensure that you're delivering the experience that passengers are looking for. So, I think having an enterprise-grade system, as Philippe pointed out, is extremely important. So we tend to focus on, LEO systems that are enterprise-grade level, but we also have pretty unique technology to blend GEO and LEO. And I think the benefit of blending these transport mechanisms is you get the benefit of the high density, gigabits and gigabits and gigabits of capacity that are available today over the busy airport hubs and the benefit of LEO. So when you blend these two, it's an exceptional experience with a very high committed information rate or an SLA to the airline. So that airline makes sure that they're able to basically deliver that experience that they're after, especially for folks that are, aspirational and the level of connectivity that they want to provide. And I would say that, the demand continues to evolve and grow. So, for some airlines, LEO only may be okay. But if you're sharing that capacity with, millions and millions and millions of residential subscribers that are just consuming bandwidth and, watching their favorite TV shows and so forth, now the passengers in the air are having to compete with those folks on the ground. So we think that's a challenge that, there should be awareness of that challenge. And, there's ultimately an upper bound to how many LEOs we can launch. So our view is that it's, we take a practical approach. We take a sustainable approach when we look at these LEO constellations that like Telesat Lightspeed, like OneWeb, for example, that are both thinking about this in a sustainable way and not, launching thousands and thousands and thousands of satellites.
Absolutely. And so we've kind of touched on the performance side of each of these options and a fusion. So what is the potential cost savings for airlines when considering LEO, GEO, or a multi-orbit approach?
I don't know that there's going to be massive cost savings. I mean, I think that if you break into the classic CapEx and OpEx side of things, we're moving in general towards solid state antennas and ESAs. To Philippe's point, some of the legacy antennas still will work with non-geostationary satellites. But I think in general, we're moving towards ESAs, and they are not really that much cheaper than the current generation of gimbal. While the service costs of the newer satellites are certainly cheaper than the previous ones, usage is going up. I mean, I think probably this entire panel has seen the way that certainly post-COVID, the demand for IFC has just been inexorable, and it's just growing month over month over month. So while unit costs are coming down, the pricing, the overall cost is generally going up. So then you get into a conversation, which we might touch on a bit more later, about, well, who pays? Is it the airline that's paying? Are you paying in your ticket? Is a third party paying for it? So I don't know that the airlines should think of multi-orbit as necessarily being a cost reduction. It's going to be a massive system enabler, whether it's through passengers' devices or whether it's through seat back. We're seeing more and more airlines now looking at the convergence of connectivity into the seat back and how that allows them to create a much more connected experience for their passengers. It's great news for the industry, whether you're a passenger. It's great news for us as IFC providers. But while unit economics are coming down, I think it's really more a case of the overall cost of the system is going to be going up.
That's great, John. Thanks. Would anyone else like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a price-sensitive market, right? So bringing a superior LEO service is important, but it cannot come at a premium. So we design our constellation to be very competitive against any constellation now or in the future. But working through channel, different channel might have different approach, whether it's a hybrid GEO, LEO, or LEO only, and how they blend the two in terms of price or not is really their decision.
Absolutely. Reza, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think both Philippe and John said it well. There's an insatiable demand. I think what we see is that folks are willing to pay for performance. And especially as the demand continues going up, we need to bring more and more capacity. So being flexible for our airline partners is important, and bringing the right capacity at the right time to the right aircraft is equally as important. So right there, I mean, I think the economics are improving, but we're also adding a lot more capacity. So it's, I think that the macro kind of costs the macro costs are the same. It's just you're getting more for that same amount of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about a multi-orbit satellite approach, what are the distinct benefits for airlines and passengers in terms of performance, coverage, and reliability?
Sure.
I can. Oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Reza.
Please.
No, you go ahead, please.
Please, after you.
All right. We should mix it up a little bit so we're not all talking in the same order. In terms of coverage, the difference is it's pole to pole, right? So you have coverage where we didn't have coverage before. So that's obviously a major difference between the different constellations. In terms of performance, as we've all talked about, the throughput goes up very significantly. We're seeing these new modern systems capable of delivering, in some cases, up to a gigabit per second and multiple hundreds of megabits. I think overall system reliability also goes up. To more modern technologies, there's antennas which have got greater reliability, or simply there's far more satellite. Those of us who have been around for a while have been familiar with the loss of an Intel a couple of years ago, and then Viasat unfortunately lost by 3A recently. When you've only got one or two, you're very vulnerable to the loss of that satellite. With LEOs and thousands of satellite mobility, I think a lot of things change.
Mm-hmm. Reza, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think, you get the benefit of added resiliency, redundancy, the ability to ingest capacity from multiple networks. So in our multi-orbit approach, we're not having to decide GEO or LEO. We believe in GEO and LEO. So we're bringing it all into one stream of greatness, if you will, for the passenger. So that, again, that creates a higher reliability cadence. It creates a vehicle to bring in a lot of capacity from multiple sources, and ultimately that content-rich experience. To John's point, to the seat back potentially, right? I mean, I think folks really want to be connected in more ways than just their personal device, and this level of connectivity enables that. So at Hughes, we're really proud of the innovation that we've been at it for over a decade with our fusion technology, bringing GEO, LEO, LTE, landline, I mean, you name it, we're putting it together.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Philippe?
I mean, yeah, recently I flew to Alaska, and while connecting in flight, I was warned that there would be no connectivity on the second half of the flight because it was going to be in too high latitude. And as a business passenger, it just meant loss of productivity for me, right? So really the pole-to-pole coverage, no blackout over the ocean, but also ample capacity to meet the demand wherever the aircraft is around the world, right? As it was pointed out earlier, if a beam is full with consumers, well, it's like missing part of the coverage.
Mhm.
So these are all characteristics that are important to serve global routes, and that's part of what Telesat Lightspeed brings to the table. For us, there is not necessarily a need for geo overlay for that. Doesn't hurt to have a geo overlay. And as it was pointed out, the reliability is also key. And with LEOs and aircraft having the ability to always have multiple satellites in view, it is pretty much a self-healing network, right? Whether or not you have a geo constellation on top of it, geo bringing just another layer for that standpoint.
That's great. Thank you. Benny, I'm going to defer to you on this next question. What role does data-driven decision-making play in determining the best course of action for IFC investment for airlines?
Yeah, I mean, for us here in Neuron, it's all about the end user experience, right? It's about helping airlines understand end user experience. And for us, end user experience is also a function of the markets that the airlines are serving, the passenger demographics. It's more complicated than just saying, oh, it's not just package and latency, right? It's about what are they trying to do? A Saturday afternoon flight from New York to Orlando might be a lot of kids trying to play games and watch Disney Plus movies versus a Monday morning flight from Boston to SFO could mean a lot of business users who are trying to get their work done. So it starts with first understanding, making data-driven decisions, understanding your guest passenger experience. Now, once you understand that, it's like then the next thing is, okay, how do you meet that experience? So once you understand experience, like how do I now cater to that passenger that is sitting on that seat, which then becomes data-driven procurement, data-driven operations. So for us, it's all about how do we make that insight available to the airline in an easier way. We have done this across 1 million plus flights right now, trending towards 1.5 million flights being monitored across the globe. So we have very interesting insights. We believe that making that data-driven helps them make smart procurement decisions, optimize the capital, OpEx spends, all towards serving that passenger needs to maximize their efficiency. Fantastic.
Kurt, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would. It's and Benny is spot on. One of the things we're in a unique position at Thales because we do provide connectivity in parts of the world, but we also provide IFE installed on every major carrier, almost many major carriers that connects to everyone else's IFE and a lot of different networks. So we've developed the QO, the quality of experience, quality of service tools for our own connectivity, and now we're having airlines ask us, can you put that on your IFE system? Can you help us with our connectivity solutions so we can give them more data? Just so over the last 15 years, many times an airline would say, well, my connectivity says it's on, but I've got passengers complaining. And so we're kind of coming in as a third party in some cases and giving airlines more information. And actually all the providers are also giving more information. But the airlines want to make sure that what they're paying for on the connectivity side is actually delivering to the customer expectations. And it becomes a differentiator instead of an experience where customers walk away going, well, I paid a lot of money for that session and I'm not very happy. So the more data we can get to airlines in any form just enables them to get better service and ensure that they deliver what they're hoping to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. John, would you like to add to that?
I don't think I've actually got much to add to that one based on the other comments. So
okay, fantastic.
I'll pass on.
So let's kind of move on to connectivity and the passenger experience. So what are some of the ways that connectivity suppliers can reduce the cost of ownership for airlines while helping to deliver a connected passenger experience? Philip, would you be able to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the obvious ones are the cost of the capacity and the upfront hardware, but there is also some maybe harder to quantify costs that should be considered, right? And for instance, maintenance costs, and for an airline having to ground the aircraft to replace an antenna, for instance, can add up very quickly. So that's why we chose to start with field-proven and reliable antennas that exist today and have shown that they are workhorse in the field. And like the Thincom 2517, that's our reference terminal, but won't be the only one. And also an airing compliant solution with a modman to help reduce those maintenance costs. On the flip side, look, ESA is a great technology. It's going in that direction. It's still a novelty at this point for commercial aviation. There's a risk of high power dissipation. Impact on MTBF is unknown, especially if it derives from consumer technology. But look, this is a technology that will mature, and it won't be too long before an ESA solution will bring a solutions on ESA around the time we are in service, and we think at that point the technology will be mature enough.
Fantastic. Kurt, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, and it's interesting that the question was, how do you reduce cost? I think one of the biggest things, I think John pointed out earlier, that the unit cost has come down tremendously. But because there's more data usage, it kind of equals out. I think the key thing is, because now that connectivity is more consistent, more capable, actually much higher capability, what it does is, you may not reduce the cost, but airlines now see it as, I see higher value, and it's easier for them to justify and say, yes, I want to invest. JetBlue started years ago giving free connectivity to differentiate. Now we've got Delta, now we've got United and other airlines coming out saying, yes, I'm going to give this for free, become part of my Sky Miles programs or United Plus. But the whole point I think that we're seeing now is the solutions are, yeah, I'll take a step back. 20 years, or the last 15 years in connectivity, we always said, are we there yet? Yeah, are the solutions ready for what we want to deliver to passengers? And we would always say, never been closer, but not quite there. I think we're now on the cusp of that golden age with the new networks coming out to add to what's already out up in the sky. And I think now airlines are going to be able to have more options and start to see more value, so they're going to be willing to pay.
Fantastic. Reza, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I guess I also look at total cost of ownership kind of in a broader view, including net promoter score and the ultimate impact on the passenger. If and I'll you essentially also have to think about the maintenance cycles that the line maintenance teams need to go through to care and feed these antenna systems. Unfortunately, and it's really unfortunate for all of us, I think that the 10,000 connected aircraft today, leave a lot to be desired. I mean, how many times have you been on a flight that you have an interruption or somebody in the seat in front of you, and I've had this happen, that the power system isn't working, and unfortunately the flight crew resets the whole thing. These are two non-related systems, but they take the whole connectivity down. So even if it was working, they actually take it down. So we've spent a lot of time and energy in investing in our in-flight connectivity management system. That's a data science enabled solution, both on wing and in the cloud, to monitor every single touch point, every single node on the network, on the aircraft network and the macro network, to create a reliable experience. And we have what we say predictive maintenance. So before a system or LRU has a failure, we're able to coordinate with the airline to say, you know what, this is a bulletin, we should think about replacing this part or that part in anticipation of a failure. So then we can schedule downtime, and you're not having to have an AOG situation or a situation where, passengers are frustrated, right? I think that's the last thing we want. There's enough frustrated passengers today. So our aspiration, our vision, and our solution actually does that. And ultimately, the total cost of ownership question, I think, is optimized, if you will, because your net promoter score stays high. your line maintenance teams are more effective and how they're replacing LRUs. And ultimately, if you have a paid model, passengers keep paying. You don't have to provide refunds. You know, some airlines are proactively providing refunds. So even if you didn't notice a glitch, you're still getting your refund. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the ecosystem. And again, it's not just about the orbit or the constellation, but it's also about the service provider behind you as the airline, creating these experiences for your passengers. So we're really proud of the work we've done over the last several years and solving this problem.
Absolutely, that's great. So we've seen passenger expectations evolving in terms of what the connectivity experience should look like in flight. What would you say should be the priority for airlines when it comes to delivering IFC now and going forward? Benny, would you like to start us off?
Sure. So, I mean, as Neuron has done multi-provider services, multi-orbit services, probably we are the largest installation in the maritime industry today. Done it for tens of millions of passengers in the cruise. Based on what we have seen and monitoring like 1 million plus flights, one thing is very clear with low latency, high speed services, delivering that passenger experience is just table stakes for airlines. I don't think it's a big benefit or advantage. It's just table stakes. But what we believe the airline should focus on is we are in a moment similar to the smartphone and the 3G moment, if you will, where with services like what Thales has done with the Flight Edge and the high-speed, low-latency service, we're actually at the cusp of a lot of second-order impacts, if you will, in the airline industry. And I think the airline should not lose focus on that. And the second-order impact could be partnerships with telecom players locally, partnerships with other ecosystem players in the larger travel and tourism industry, more tighter integrations between the airports and the airlines. So while delivering the passenger experience is more like table stakes right now, I think what airlines should also continue to have sight on is what is that second order impact for them based on the passenger demographic and the market that they are serving.
That's great. Thanks, Benny. Kurt, would you like to add to that?
No, I think Benny is spot on. I think the second part of the question is what do airlines have to worry about, or what do they have to really prioritize when they make a decision? As airlines start to go free, as more of them, especially in the U.S. anyway, in the U.S. region, as they start to offer connectivity for free, although it's table stakes, when you start having that many folks online at the same time, I think all of us as connectivity providers are sitting here going, this is great. This is where we wanted to finally get to have some consistent service delivery to aircraft, but we're also getting very concerned because it's going to be a lot of demand on the networks that are flying, and it's going to be something that we have not seen before as we unleash if other airlines start to follow. I think as an airline making that decision, even if you're not ready to go free today, but you think you may one time in the future, you've got to make a decision that you say, yes, my partner, I'm spending a lot of money to put this equipment on my aircraft. The partner I'm married to here, and it is a marriage for a long period of time. You've got to make sure that they're going to be able to support those needs that you have today and the needs that are going to be coming in the future. If you decide to go free now or even free later, also knowing what Benny said, I think we've all heard it. We're all seeing this. Whether it's a free service or paid service, the session usage is increasing every year over year over year. Passengers, when they get on, they have more apps and more uses for that connectivity that we haven't even imagined yet, and it's growing. That's the key.
Absolutely. John, would you like to speak to this as well?
Yeah, sure. Just continue this that the other speakers already sort of mentioned. I think reliability and consistency is going to be really important in making sure the networks you've got have got the right capacity to deliver the service that their passengers want. To raise this point about making sure that it's not just the network, it's the equipment on the airplanes, and making sure that works. And I love, Reza, you're talking about predictive maintenance. I think that's going to be an end goal for us in terms of all of us to try and be able to repair something before it's broken, if you will. So anticipate when things are going to go wrong so that there's no outage. Bringing a lot of our seat back experience from Panasonic. If you've got 400 seats on an airplane and you're the one guy looking at a black screen, that didn't go over very well. So, everybody wants to make sure they've got that service, especially if you're on a very long flight. With IFE and IFC, you're going to make sure that same sort of that the aircraft is there and that it's working. The other bit that I'll add into this is that, to Kurt's point, we haven't yet imagined everything a passenger is going to want to do with connectivity. But I think the seat back is an area where we shouldn't overlook the impact of connectivity on the seat back. And there's both good to that and not bad to that. But on the good side, we can help manage network traffic through the content that's on board the aircraft. And I don't mean just necessarily the legacy of stored video, but if you can start caching from an edge type content onto the airplane, you can eliminate a lot of the video needs in terms of uploading more traffic onto the network to kind of balance it all. So I think that we think of this as like an ecosystem in terms of everything from the network to the maintenance side of it to how seatback can play a really important role in terms of the way that certainly the top tier airlines think about their connected experience. So I think it all plays together.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of on that point, John, in terms of seatback and connectivity, what is the role of cloud-based connectivity in IFE, and how important is it for airlines to just consider the two systems as a whole going forward?
I think it becomes ever more increasingly important. I think the airline has been an offline system. If you go back to the early days of my career, the speed of connectivity to an airplane was 2.4 kilobits a second. That's a 20th of dial-up. I mean, that's how bad it was, 25 years ago. Now we're in the era of hundreds of megabits, and that's enabling the aircraft to be truly online. And even with the legacy systems we have today, the aircraft still weren't truly online. But as the onboard compute on aircraft starts to become more powerful, as the links become more powerful, so the aircraft can just become a natural extension of a node on the airline's entire network. And that starts to enable a lot of the cloud computing capabilities that we haven't been able to introduce onto aircraft before. It's actually another tangential reason why I think that LEO and low latency becomes really important, because for cloud computing to work very well, it needs to have low latency. So that's another reason why we think the future is more oriented towards LEO than GEO. But to just summarize, I think it's going to become, there'll be opportunities opening for the aircraft to sit on the cloud as a system on the cloud that I think is going to open up all kinds of things for the airlines to be able to do.
Fantastic. Reza, would you like to speak to the system integration as well?
Sure, yeah. So I think, and I'll just kind of reference, the connectivity enabling these cloud-based kind of achievements that John is mentioning is important. Having enough capacity, the right amount, the dedicated capacity, if you will, the access to the capacity and uncontended capacity to be able to have this interaction between the aircraft and cloud-based systems. A lot of our connectivity enablements are all cloud-based today. They either are or we've moved to the cloud over the past 12 to 24 months. So I think when you do that, you can scale much quicker. You have the ability to be agile to help airlines and other customers meet the needs of their passengers and their guests. So I think it's again, we're in a whole new era, if you will. And I think if we as providers leverage the tools at our disposals, if we kind of leave the baggage behind and look forward, excuse the pun, but it's really important to take a fresh look, and that's how you achieve really great systems and solutions for our customers.
Absolutely. Kurt, would you like to add anything?
Yeah. And I resonate a lot with what John was mentioning when you talk about connectivity and IFE. I'd say the capability on the connectivity side, it's going to marry with the IFE solution in ways that we're now starting to exploit. 5 years ago, on the talent within Thales, we kind of thought that this day would eventually, well, we knew it would eventually come. We didn't know when, but we knew that eventually we get to a point where everything is connected with consistent, reliable, high capacity networks. And so we said, what does that mean for the IFE system? And we realized it's a convergence of connectivity on that seat back, and then enabling an airline to deliver a very to deliver a curated experience for whatever reason they want, whether to drive loyalty, potentially ancillary revenue, just passenger excitement, and do it in a way that they can control and they can utilize like they do their infrastructure on the ground. And it's important because they all have major IT departments and they're trying to figure out, how do I marry the on-ground experience, even in their clubs, and how do I do that online? So we actually built a completely new IFE solution. We realized we couldn't do this by just adding to our existing IFE solution. And Benny referenced it earlier, called Flight Edge, and it is cloud native. It actually has, it stores its, I mean, it runs on the aircraft if it's not connected, but it's meant to be connected. When it's connected, an airline can actually go into the cloud, see how their aircraft is doing real time. They can even make changes and push to the aircraft real time. But the most important thing is it allows them to develop applications and third-party tools that they do on the ground using the same technologies. They can push them to their aircraft much more quickly. So all in all, we're enabling, through the cloud, the use of a native cloud-based solution, we're enabling an airline to have more control of their experience in the air. And as I think John said earlier too, we don't even know where this is going to go. We know that a lot of new pieces are going to be built and added on over time, and it's going to be an exciting space for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Philip, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, look, the cloud application just means, you know, more ways to use the connectivity. At the end, you know, what's the most important is the quality of experience to the passenger. I think we always have to go back there. And sometimes, you know, we think too quickly, or at low latency, a lot of capacity solves it all. But really what's important for the passenger is that to have that very consistent user experience gate to gate, right? If you take off, you have a great user experience, then you go over beams that are full with consumers and your service level degrades. And then, you know, back to a good user experience. And then you want to make a change to your hotel reservation. And, you know, now you run into connectivity issues. Passengers will remember the worst. And this is why, you know, when we provide a CIR to an aircraft and the aircraft takes off, we reserve the capacity along the way, all the way to, you know, when it lands. And that provide that very consistent user experience throughout the journey of the passenger and avoid frustration. And you know, we believe that is a differentiator with other approach of constellations.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about frictionless connectivity. How is frictionless connectivity elevating the passenger experience, and how can it help airlines build brand loyalty? Reza, I know recently you and I spoke a little bit about the business traveler. So can you kind of touch on how important this is for that type of traveler?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's huge, especially if you think about the premium business traveler. You know, whether you're in the premium cabin or even in the economy cabin, business travelers especially want to continue interacting with their office. You know, if you're on a 3 or 4 hour flight, at least in my own case, at least half of that time, I do want to be connected. I do want to stay up to date with emails and take actions, you know, approve certain things to keep the business going as the rest of the team is on the ground. So I think it's critical. And when that flow of interactivity with your office is disconnected for a period of time, it's really frustrating. On a long haul flight, especially, right? How many times have you been on a long haul flight where you have issues connecting, especially if you have to get things done? And me personally, I've been in situations where we've been either doing a deal or working on a critical item, and we get disconnected for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in some cases, and it's super frustrating. So I think it's an opportunity for the industry to do better. We're passionate about it. You know, it doesn't have to be this bad. And everything we do day in, day out, that's the first question we ask is, as we deliver these services to our customers, passengers, how do we make sure that we have a reliable experience, a snappy experience, every flight, every passenger, every single time. That is absolutely in our DNA, and we're excited. I think it didn't have to be this bad, and look, and I'll be the first to say it is a complicated system. All these systems are extremely complex, but because we've been doing this for 2 decades as a provider to the providers, we had a lot of know-how on what was going wrong, what could go wrong. So we're really perfecting that. So again, we're very excited. I think it's not just about the satellite capacity, but it's about the end-to-end enablement. Even, we hear a lot of noise and a lot of information out in the marketplace about these new systems and GSO systems out there. You still have to have a product on board that works and works reliably. And that is just so important. The managed service aspect, we just can't forget about the importance of that and enabling passengers.
Yep, absolutely. Benny, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. In Neuron, I think we, from a frictionless passenger digital experience perspective, we have a slightly holistic view than just looking at connectivity, right? In all transparency, if you look at a passenger today who has a mobile app or from the airline walks into an aircraft, there we see it as 3 siloed systems today on board, right? You have the mobile app from the airline, and then there is the seatback screen and seatback content, and then there's the IFC system that we, interestingly, if you look at it, these are all very siloed systems, in fact, having their own dashboards and reporting mechanisms and whatnot. We believe there is a lot of value in kind of converging these 3, more from first a data perspective, and eventually how can they function together as one unique single system. Like, walking into a plane, what if your mobile app knows that you walked into an aircraft already, sends a notification saying, hey, welcome aboard, in your phone, helps you get comfortable, logs you in seamlessly because they know who you are. You don't have to go through a portal. So we believe there's a lot of, when we integrate data across these 3 platforms, like from mobile app to seatback screens to connectivity system, there is a lot of convergence you can bring, which will perfect that digital experience on board for you, for that passenger. And I think there is work to do, but I think getting the compute that is required on board, as Kurt said, getting the low latency connectivity, we again believe this is that smartphone moment in the industry to perfect this.
Fantastic. John, would you like to add anything?
Very much along the same lines as the other panelists. I mean, I think seamless connectivity is going to be really important in the future. The previous data-intensive portals that required you to put in all kinds of data and provide DNA samples from all sets of grandparents. I mean, it was just very, very difficult to sort of get connected. And now we're going to move into a world, as Benny was speaking to, a lot of it's just going to happen behind the scenes. I think seamlessness doesn't necessarily mean zero in touch from the airlines or the service provider is. Some airlines do still want to maintain the fact that they want to maintain a connection, even through your own device, to the services they're providing on board. But I think it's going to look radically, radically different from how it looked in the past, whether it's authentication, payment mechanisms. There's an awful lot of things that we can do, speaking to what Reza was talking about earlier, to make this easier from the passenger perspective. And that is one of the big impediments, I think, to how people have perceived IFC. It was difficult to get connected. It was intermittent when you got connected, and it wasn't the best experience. I think all of us are poised here to be able to eliminate those friction points, and IFC will truly look amazingly different by the end of this decade compared to what it looks like even today.
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt, can you speak to how a comprehensive kind of platform such as Flight Edge can help airlines build that brand loyalty and get passengers plugged in as soon as they board the aircraft?
Yeah, I think at a very practical level, one of the things that we've done by making it cloud native and using the same technologies that we use on the ground, the biggest change is that on the current IFE systems, we can all integrate third-party applications and different features, functionality. It's just a matter of time. It takes time. On Flight Edge, we kind of decrease that time tremendously and give a lot more power directly to an airline so that the airline they can add capability, test that capability, deploy that capability, even without going to the IFE provider. It just means that giving that simplicity and that capability to the airline themselves, they're going to be able to create the experience they want on their timeline, which we haven't been able to deliver until now.
Yeah, that's great. Benny, would you be able to speak a little bit about how network performance data benefits airlines when making decisions about their IFC systems and how they deliver to passengers?
Yeah, again, what we believe is it solves two key problems for, right? Data should be at the heart of the entire connectivity lifecycle management, IFC lifecycle management. It starts with, of course, do you have the data to do smart procurement? Because you're now optimizing for the capital spend that you can, or the OpEx that you can afford, while ensuring that it's maximizing your passenger experience. So how do you use data in the way you structure SLAs? How do you use data in the way you procure services? Do you want to do per boarded passenger, or you want to do consumption based, or do you want to do CIR services? There is so much uniqueness depending upon the airline, the market that they are serving, the passenger demographic that the airline can benefit from just using data to do smart procurement. And you'd be amazed. We have seen millions of dollars being left on the table just because they picked the wrong model without the right data or the right insight. So we believe data can help you with just smart procurement. So if an airline is going through an RFP, data should play an important role in how they structure their RFP, how they structure their SLA and procurement. On the other side, on lifecycle management, it's like, okay, you've deployed it, you believe you have the right SLA that is aligned with your passenger demographic requirements and your own IT requirements. So how do you now use data for ongoing lifecycle management? How do you ensure that you're getting what you paid for? Or how do you ensure that your passenger is having the right level of experience? What we also learned after monitoring millions of flights is it's averages can kill a lot. Averages can bury a lot of things under the ground. When you actually look at insights and you look at running very interesting models on the data, and you realize that that one particular market that you're actually going after is being actually impacted. And when you dig that up, you feel like, oh, there's an elephant in the room that I've been missing. So that is what, like, data-driven, once you solve data-driven procurement, data-driven operations can ensure that you get continuous value, and you make sure you optimize your products, Wi-Fi products on an ongoing basis to, again, deliver the passenger experience, maximize your return on investment.
Fantastic. Thanks, Benny. Kurt, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a great discussion, and as we've mentioned, we're on the cusp of what should be the golden age of connectivity. A lot of investments being made. Satellites are going in the air. New antennas are coming out. But I think Reza pointed out, we still have 10,000 aircraft connected today that are not taking advantage of these new networks yet. And it's important because airlines are asking us, they're asking all of us. They want more data. They want to make sure that they're actually getting what they pay for. And those 10,000 aircraft, they're going to be connected on those same networks for a long period of time. And so when it comes down to getting that data to the airlines, they not only need access to the data, but a lot of them, they're all becoming much, much more proficient in connectivity. There's a few absolutely leading the way, but they still need help, and they need help from their providers. They're also asking for help from third parties like ourselves, like Neuron in a lot of cases, to say, hey, am I getting what I paid for? And if not, what can I do about it? How should we handle it? And so you just make the data available. The data will set you free, and that's what we need to do. Anyway, thank you, Robin. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. I would also just like to touch on AI before we wrap up. So how can airlines leverage AI to optimize connectivity and allow, and help deliver a better experience to passengers based on that data? Benny, can you start us off?
Yeah, again, in Neuron, we started off, I mean, even before AI was a thing, we started off with running automated optimization models at scale. So one thing, there are two big areas we believe there will be continued improvements. One is productivity gains, which is basically how can I operate a large system, hundreds of flights or thousands of flights a day, and make sure that I optimize for my end user experience. How do I? We believe it's like having 100+ engineers at your service, working constantly, looking at your flights, flight by flight, looking at be it hardware issues, network performance issues, access point issues, login issues on your portal, whatnot, right? Every touch point, how do you use it to improve productivity? How do you use it to, again, serve your passengers better is one big vertical pillar, if you will, that AI can help and certainly revolutionize. It's airlines should think like, if I have a partner that can help me with deploying this, they can literally have 100 IFC engineers at their service every day, looking at their flights, looking to improve that passenger experience. On the other side, it can also help you with understanding your passenger experience from a personalization standpoint, which is like, okay, how do I look at the markets that I want to focus on? Like for every airline, for example, an airline might focus on the East Coast market from New York to Florida. Okay, how do I understand that market? How do I serve my passenger with more personalized experience? AI can help a lot. Like it can look at data patterns, data signatures, help you look at that either IFC usage data, IFE usage data to help you again personalize that experience for them. So these are the two big verticals that we believe that can be tackled. Again, we have done quite a bit of work around productivity gains. The results are exceptional, as I said. I'll leave with that thought, right? The airline should think of 100+ IFC engineers at their service, ready to help them at scale. On the other side, now how do I then personalize my experience using AI models? So we believe the future, it's going to be amazing.
That's fantastic. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I love Benny's analogy of 100 IFC engineers. That's exactly right. I mean, that, I think gone are the days of having these big network operation centers with eyes on glass. It's all about the data. It's all about making the right, having the data at your fingertips, having models that really understand the reality of what's happening on wing and in the network, and to Benny's point, at the application layer as well, and bringing all this together. I think that's where the magic happens. And to Kurt's point, I'm excited also, right? We're at the cusp. We are truly at a great place. I think when you bring all these technologies and constellations together in one simple package for the airline, which there's some magic there too. It's not simple, it's not easy, but I think when you create a simple package for the airline, everything will start flowing, and I think passengers will be happy, right? Passengers will be happy. They'd be able to access the content they'd like to content. They'd be able to check the cameras at their house. They'd be able to connect to the cloud-based applications they need to connect to live their life even in the air. I think we're at a pretty good spot. It can't come soon enough. So I'm excited to keep talking to you guys over the coming months and years as we deploy these systems. When we fly these systems, it's going to be incredible.
It's a very exciting time. Thanks, Reza. Kurt, did you want to add something?
Real quickly, because I was thinking, I took a step back thinking where we use AI today. And at Thales, we're a huge, very large organization. We have a whole group dedicated to investigating AI and its applications. But then I realized even in in-flight entertainment, we're using it in two interesting places. And it hit me that 5 years from now, we're going to be having this conversation, and we'll all be amazed at how we're using AI in different places. I mean, we use it today in a cross-platform recommendation engine on board. So if somebody watches a James Bond movie, serve them up an ad for an Omega watch or something similar, and it learns. It uses machine learning as well. And then on the edge caching side, John mentioned it earlier, we've got an edge caching solution that uses history to figure out what do we pre-position versus what do we store. And I say that because when it comes to AI, we now have all the tools we need to actually use AI on the aircraft. And that is the biggest impediment. A lot of capacity, compute on and off in the cloud, on the aircraft and off the aircraft. So now that we have the tools there, we can start utilizing AI and all the benefits. And I think a couple of years from now, we're going to have a very different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we started this discussion talking about LEO, GEO, and multi-orbit satellites. So I just want to bring us back as we end off here. But in terms of scalability, how does a multi-orbit approach to connectivity allow airlines to grow with their IFC? John, could you start us off?
Sure. Maybe I'll be a little bit controversial here to kind of end the session. I mean, today we're talking about multi-orbit in terms of GEO and LEO, and perhaps even 5G on the ground. As we think about the scalability of LEO networks, my commercial statement is that maybe in 5 years' time, we'll see this industry being LEO only, and we won't see a role for GEO anymore. And it comes down to your comment about scalability, in that it's far, far easier to throw up 60 satellites on a single Falcon 9, as one IFC provider is doing on a weekly basis, and for other IFC providers to do similar things. All of the LEO providers have got the ability to add more and more satellites into their orbits. If we can solve the coverage issues, which is primarily over China, and offer LEO services over China, then I would project a world in the future where we don't see GEO anymore. And the expandability and scalability is driven merely by new satellites being added to existing LEO providers. So that's going to be my closing comment, is in the future, I think multi-orbit goes away and LEO only is really the world of the future.
Wow, thanks, John. Philip, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think in terms of scalability, it's really the important question is, how do you bring a solution that has enough capacity to support growth of 20, 30% annually for the internet usage per connected passenger? You have the growth of the take-up rate, especially for airlines that are planning on transitioning toward a free to the passenger model. And then we see aircraft being added in region by the hundreds. And when you look at that, it's not just how much total capacity you have globally, because bringing more capacity in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is great, but that's not where you need it. Really, the big question is, can you support the concentration of capacity where the airlines need it, which is first and foremost around the airport hubs. And in a case of Lightspeed, we designed it so that we have this ability to bring the capacity where it is needed, when it is needed, and around airport hubs to overlay beams on top of each other. And with the use of K-band, we have more spectrum than KU, so we are in a good position to address that concentration of demand around airports. And if you're limited by the spectrum, it doesn't matter if you can, if you throw thousands of aircrafts more, satellites more, you still have that limitation. So I think this is a very critical aspect on how Telesat Lightspeed really can help solve the challenges of in-flight connectivity from a network standpoint.
Absolutely. Reza, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so I think I tend to agree. We happen to be in a situation where we're leveraging GEO and LEOs, but I guess I would take it a step further and say maybe we see a LEO world where you have 2 LEO constellations that you're getting access to at the same time, as an extreme case, right? Again, you'll always have those airlines that really want to excel and have the optimal connectivity. While a LEO only system is great, if you have access to 2 constellations and a significant amount of connectivity, I think that would be my provocative statement to wrap up the session.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much to everyone for being a part of this discussion today. And I want to thank Panasonic again for sponsoring this panel. I think it's safe to say that we're all looking forward to the next chapter in connectivity.